All right, guys, coming at you with the AFC South edition of the Low Man Wins Draft Grades. I'm Andrew Miller, and that's Alex Kramer. Let's just jump right into it. Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, had one of the more better top-heavy classes in this draft. They got with their two first-round picks, they got C.J. Henderson, Caleb Chason, Laviska Shenault, Devon Hamilton, Ben Barch, Josiah Scott, Shaquille Quarterman, Daniel Thomas, Colin Johnson and Jake Luton, and then you got Tyler Davis and Chris Claybooks in the seventh. I mean, Kramer, take me to your thoughts first, foremost.
I mean, this was the best top-heavy draft out there. I mean, C.J. Henderson, everybody's cornerback too behind Okudah. You're replacing Ramsey with him, no problem there. He's a solid, sticky cover guy, elite speed. I love Caleb Chason. I think he's going to be a great edge rusher, and you're replacing another need because Ngakoue doesn't want to play there anymore. I don't think he's going to play another snap in Jacksonville, so you're replacing him. Laviska Shenault is a question mark. Injuries are a concern there, but in the second round, I love the value. He's a gadget guy for Minshew, and we were talking about this beforehand, but other than really DJ Shark, we don't really agree on that they have a ton of weapons. I think the rest of this draft, there's a lot of question marks. I mean, Ben Barch could be something, but there's question marks there. Colin Johnson was never on the field at Texas. When he was great, but he never was. Same thing with Shaq Quarterman. I mean, and Quarterman doesn't even have athleticism. I mean, this is straight down to the thumper. He's not going to give you anything on third down. Jake Luton, I thought was kind of a cute pick. I don't think he has any chance of starting. This draft was solid because of the top half. The bottom half just wasn't great. I think that top half those top three players were so good. I gave this an A-, but the rest of this class was just very meh. They swang a lot. I'm just not sure any of these are going to be hits.
Yeah, I think we have different stories to get to the same result. I gave this draft an A-, but listen, C.J. Henderson I thought was a player very comparable to Jeff Okudah. I don't think the distance was that far at all. I've always loved him. I think he could be like a Darrelle Revis kind of guy, where it's just him on an island for a whole game. I really liked him. And, yeah, you get Caleb Chason. You get two of your foundational pieces in the first round, which is something I feel is very important when you're rebuilding, is to get two guys who are going to be Pro Bowlers and pieces to build around in the future. Laviska Shenault, I have a lot of feelings about this pick. I think the value makes sense. My question is, he occupies a very similar role to D.D. Westbrook, not to mention the injury concerns. And I think there's just better positional needs in the second round. I get wanting to get your receiver in this class. But Laviska Shenault, his injuries scare me, but I think if he hits the ceiling of what he can be, he could be a special player. Devon Hamilton, I thought, was a major reach in the third round. I wasn't a big fan of him, but they do need defensive line. And Ben Barch was the other great pick in this class. They need another tackle to figure out where Cam Robinson's going to play. They need to they're building their offensive line. Getting him in the fourth with a steal, I wouldn't have been mad if they took him in the third or second, to be honest. Josiah Scott, you get a good press corner. I think that you can never get too mad about getting more corners. They're building a foundation. That's why I'm not so mad about the Shaquille Quarterman, because you get a guy who maybe isn't your starter but occupies a role. He will play because he is a thumper and he's a great tackler, and you will get him out there on first and second down. And then you get, I wasn't a fan of Daniel Thomas, but if you see something, I don't go for it. Colin Johnson, like you said, injury concerns, he's pretty good, but double dipping at receiver to me was a little rich for a team that has a lot of really good developmental receivers that they've already been investing in. I think it's just another one of 8 receivers that they have in Jacksonville, like D.D. Westbrook, where it's can he start or will he be cut? Jake Luton was one of the few quarterbacks I felt comfortable drafting this year, so I'm not too mad about that. Other than that, Tyler Davis, never heard of him, and Chris Claybooks I kind of liked, but I gave it an A- because I found 3 players that I thought were true foundation pieces, and that's all you really need in Jacksonville, and 2 that will be probably superstars. So that's why I gave it an A-.
Fair enough.
And now we go to maybe one of the 2 biggest dumpster fires in all of football. The Houston Texans had one of the more interesting drafts to me. I'll kick it off. I like Ross Blacklock, and they lost DJ Reader, Was that really what you needed? Was a defensive tackle when your offensive line is awful outside Laramie Tunsil? And I get that you invested your first round pick in Tyus Howard last year, and you have to like lean on him, but you traded your second round pick for DeAndre Hopkins, which I understand. I really do. At the end of the day, you gotta like look for where the money lines up with you contending. But then you trade your second round pick for Brandon Cooks, and now you're like all of a sudden contending again. So Ross Blacklock was an interesting piece for me. I like Jonathan Greenard a lot, but he occupies a similar role to Whitney Merciless. I don't know why you're drafting him. Charlie Heck, if you believe in Titus Howard, why are you drafting another guy who can only play tackle? He's 6'8". He's too big to play guard. I don't know why you picked him. I thought he was already pretty good. I think he'd be better on any other team. John Reed, Bill O'Brien going back to the Penn State well, and Isaiah Coulter may have been the only pick I thought was real value in the 5th, but they occupied a need. They didn't need more wide receivers. They have 4 of them already. I don't understand. Maybe any of these. I keep looking at this grade. I give them a C-. That's maybe a little generous. I'm going to give them a D. A D because the Ross Blacklock, because I like these players, but all of them are like backups. Except Ross Blacklock, they're all never going to see the field because they have players ahead of them. And they have, and it's not like they're rebuilding. They have to contend based on the way their roster is constructed. I don't understand this, Kramer.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head for me. It's a C-. I really like the players. Their top 2 picks I thought are great players in Blaylock and Greenard. There's great traits with them. Both of them have the chance to be really good starters, but the D-line is already the strength of this team. I mean, it's not a need. I mean, Charlie Heck could be a great swing tackle for the next decade. I'm not convinced he's a starter, and if he is a starter, you don't need him now that you have Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil. Isaiah Coulter, you just traded for Brandon Cooks, so that's not a need either. I mean, I don't know how this team got better. I really don't know how the team got better. I mean, I like the players a lot, but where are they going to impact this team next year or in the next 2 years? I mean, if Greenard becomes an elite pass rusher, great. If Blacklock becomes an elite defensive tackle, great. I mean, you still don't really have great corners. You still don't have a great back end. You still don't have a great offensive line, an interior offensive line. I mean, they just didn't answer any of the questions I had. And, I mean, getting a couple good players is great, but overall, this is a C- for me.
Yeah, I'll tell you what about this class. You know, they needed a secondary help, and their only secondary player they picked was a reach in the 4th. I think that was
he's going to play slot. Yeah, that's all he can play.
I didn't like that at all. And you said you nailed it on the head. This team did not get better. They're basically returning the same roster last year, except they downgraded DeAndre Hopkins to Brandon Cooks.
That's a significant downgrade too. It's not like that's a pretty significant downgrade, and I don't think we should even judge this Bill O'Brien class because it's not going to make sense. Like, this entire offseason for him, it just doesn't make sense.
I just don't understand why you draft Isaiah Coulter when you have Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills, and like Kiki Gucci who already occupy his role. But yeah, I think I gave it a D, and I was generous. Moving on to what I think was maybe the best draft in maybe one of the more complete drafts. Maybe not the best draft, the complete draft in the AFC South. You know, Mike Vrabel did not shit the bed on or shit the toilet, as I should say, for this draft, if anyone remembers that viral moment. The Titans, I think, did pretty well. Isiah Wilson was one of my man crushes. I mean, you remember all these texts I would send you about Isiah Wilson over Andrew Thomas. I swear. Christian Fulton in the second round was a real steal. Isiah Wilson, like I said, basically replaces Jack Conklin and allows for a more power-heavy game than Jack Conklin could provide. Excuse me. Darington Evans, as a player, I loved. And I think will occupy the Dion Lewis role great. My only problem with that pick is if you're contending this year, I don't know why you're your team is basically Derrick Henry, take us as far as you can go. I don't know why you're wasting a 3rd-round pick on the run on a scat back. I would have rather them gone somewhere else. But Laurel Murchison, the fifth, as a guy I really liked. And then my favorite, late round quarterback, and Cole Mcdonald, who sadly had to shave his dreadlocks to be drafted. He's the guy who has a real arm, and I think he could be this is crazy. I think if Ryan Tannehill does not succeed, which I don't think is a given that he succeeds, Cole McDonald could be a developmental starter. I really believe in the guy. He has the arm. He has the intangibles. His teammates love him. I hope he develops, and one Hawaiian quarterback is out, and they bring back one who actually played college there. And then you get a quarterback in the 7. So I gave it an A-. I like this draft in the back game. I think that there could have been better picks for a team that's contending, but I can't complain.
Yeah, I like it a little bit less, but I think it's a solid draft. Starting at the top, Isiah Wilson, I don't like him as much as you. I still think that's a reach, but I understand the reach because of the need, losing Jack Conklin. I think he slides right in there. I think it's a downgrade, but I don't think it's that much of a downgrade, and I understand the pick. We're just talking about the Texans. You don't understand any of the picks. That pick makes sense. So you like the value there. You're not the value. You like the need there. I agree with you. I think Christian Fulton was one of the steals of this draft. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler. He was my third-ranked cornerback in this class. I think he's elite. He's a hard worker. I'm really looking forward to how he fits into that offense or that defense. Excuse me. And then Darington Evans, you're right, the scat back. I mean, Derrick Henry was that offense last year. I mean, so I don't really understand going high third round for a guy like that. And then Murchison and Jackson, I don't really think are going to be anything. But Cole McDonald, I really agree. He was one of my favorite. I think he was my favorite day 3 quarterback going into the draft because I didn't think Fromm and Eason would fall. But McDonald has some traits, and I don't think this year he could compete with Ryan Tannehill because he needs time. But I think next year or the year after, he definitely, given some development, he has some tools that are starter level. So I like that pick. Overall, for me, it's a solid B, a solid draft. I don't love the value of some of the picks, but Fulton brings this up a lot.
Yeah, I'd never wanted a round 7 quarterback to succeed more than I wanted Cole McDonald to. I'll tell you what, legit scouting, I was more excited about Cole McDonald than I was about Eason or Fromm. They were not better. He wasn't a better player. But I was more excited.
I wasn't, but that's to each their own.
Each their own. And now moving on to what I think was one of the more really good classes in all of the draft, the Indianapolis Colts. I think this team is – everyone knows they're trying to contend. You don't bring Phillip Rivers into a bad division without trying to think that you can contend this year. And you know what? I think they did it. I think they had probably one of the better drafts out there. Michael Pittman wasn't my number 1 receiver at this spot, but I understand the pick. He's a huge guy opposite T.Y. Hilton. Fits the offense really well. I think he'll be a great complement. The real meat of this draft is their second pick. Jonathan Taylor is going to occupy a similar role to Derrick Henry. They will win games based on how far Jonathan Taylor takes them behind the offensive line in Indianapolis. They have big guys everywhere. Jonathan Taylor is used to guys who are having one of the best offensive lines in the country. The guy is going to get, I don't know how many snaps a game and try to run it down their throat. They got probably the fastest bell cow running back. For a team that's trying to contend, they got a guy whose only concern was longevity. And you know what? For a team that's trying to contend the next 3 years, that's not a concern with Jonathan Taylor. Julian Blackmon was one of my favorite players in this class, so I really like that in the third round. I think he could be a starting safety right away opposite Malik Hooker as a great compliment. He played cornerback coming into Utah, so I think he can play a lot of that Tyrann Mathieu type deal in Indy. And then Jacob Eason is the real pick of this draft because I think this is the perfect situation for him. He gets to sit behind Phillip Rivers and have the best offensive line football and have one of the best running backs in football now and have a great receiving core. And there's still a possibility he starts this year. I'm not certain how great Phillip Rivers is going to play late in the season. And Jacob Eason went to the situation you should go to. And for a player that, Frank Reich knows Tony Eason really well. Jim Kelly and Tony Eason are really good friends. And Frank Reich is best friends with his former starting quarterback. And Jacob Eason is obviously the nephew of Tony Eason. This just made way too much sense. I love that pick. Danny Pinter, backup guard, Robert Windsor, space eater, and then Isaiah Rodgers in the 7th, sure. Other than that, I thought this draft was great. I gave it an A- because I really liked most of their picks. I think they could have done better elsewhere, but I think it might be an A now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you used to think about the Colts, it'd always be, they have Andrew Luck, and then they really don't have any playmakers outside of T.Y. Hilton. Well, in this draft, they addressed that early. They got 2 really good ones in Pittman and Taylor. I think both are going to be early contributors, and they both represent really good value. I really believe that Eason pick was fantastic value, and I think even you are not an Eason fan, but in the 4th round, I think you can recognize what great value that is. I think Blackman was a really big reach. I think Pinter was a really big reach going into the 5th. I mean, the 6th rounders, most of that, all 4 of them are punts. I mean, hopefully one of them hits, but I don't think it's fair to really judge. Those are, a lot of them are going to be special teams guys. And I liked this draft. I thought it was good. I'm not convinced that Taylor's going to be elite. I thought that Swift was a better back. I liked other backs better. I'm not convinced in Taylor. I think there were some fumbling issues there. I think he's a great playmaker. I really like Pittman. He was one of my favorite wide receivers in this class. It's a B+ for me. I do really like this draft. It's just it left a lot to be desired after those first 2 picks and then Eason.
Yeah, I'm actually an Eason fan. I really liked him. I think I had him over Jalen Hurts. I liked him more. I think he could develop into a real starter. This draft basically signals to me this year is this team goes as far as Jonathan Taylor takes them. Let's not go as far as the coaching staff. The way this team succeeds this year is based on their 2nd round pick, Jonathan Taylor, and how well he produces early on. I think that's the only way they become a real contender. And I think the Colts are primed to win a division. Every fantasy draft I'm taking, I am targeting Jonathan Taylor. I like this draft a lot. I think you're right. They could have gone better in the later rounds, but you know what? I can't follow a team that had a really good when the draft is 4 picks essentially, and 4 picks are really good. Can't blame it too hard. So that's it for the AFC South. We'll see you next time when we tackle the AFC East, and we'll tackle the AFC West. Take care.